Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. I'm your host, Greg, and of course, this year we're focusing on 1996. So sing some Spice Girls, strap on those rollerblades, and do your freshman year of high school because that's what we were all doing back in 1996. Before I introduce my two panelists, know this is a game show. I will be scoring you based on great points made, funny jokes, perhaps insider information, little tips from the behind the scenes information available for this movie. But I will be scoring you silently, and at the end of the game show, I will tell you who has won. Joining me tonight, as always, is Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
Craig, I'm doing so good. I think that I'm coming off a victory where I beat the guest, which is just, I mean,
rude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was rude that night, and I'm sorry. But the guest was one of my former students, so my prerogative. Also, is doing your freshman year, was that a dance similar to the Bartman at this time?
Yes, yeah. You very awkwardly you walk sort of with your head hunched over and maybe a book in front of your crotch. We don't have to talk about why. We don't have to talk about why.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about why. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan. Also joining us, the co-host of iFanboy, Josh Flanagan. iFanboy this year celebrating 20 years of podcasting and 25 years of being a website. He hosts that podcast with Connor Kilpatrick, who was already destroyed twice on Movie of the Year, winning the Ghostbusters and Swingers episodes. Josh Flanagan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
That is an enormous amount. He beat the last guy who was a guest, and I guess that's not okay. And now you're on here telling me that my partner was the best ever, and I'm like, oh, it's late and I'm tired.
Yeah.
And also, you said it was your freshman year of high school, and I was like, oh, I'm old because that was my sophomore year of college. But that's fine. That's
Josh,
fine. I was still walking around with a book in front of me at that point.
You're silently getting points for being older than me. Always a good idea. Tonight, gentlemen, the movie.
Look it though.
Well, I think we can let listeners know that he looks a solid 10 years younger than us.
Yeah, honestly, when you said that you were older than me, I was like, oh wow, okay. Somebody is living well. Somebody has been playing with Legos, and it's keeping them young.
You just can't see me from the chest down. That's fine.
Just furiously, hands and feet putting Legos together.
My preference is that nobody ever see me from the chest down.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just be a Roman bust. I'll tell you what's not a bust, gentlemen, and that is tonight's movie, which is 1996's the Coen Brothers' Fargo. And Josh, starting with you, what is your history with Fargo? What were you checking out this movie in theaters as a sophomore in high school?
College.
College, I'm sorry. That was not me trying to be rude.
I must have. I don't remember exactly when I saw it. I think maybe because I was in college, maybe I couldn't afford to go or didn't do it. But I saw it pretty soon. What I do remember is that there was a lot of buzz about it, and I saw it, and I admit the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know that I get it, because in a way, there's not a lot happens in a certain way. Like it was very low key, and I remember thinking, I was like, what was that movie trying to tell me? What was it about? And it didn't click. By the way, many of my favorite movies and certainly like even albums, like they don't work for me at first. And like they live with you a little bit. And so I didn't stick with that because whenever I saw it again at some point, and it may have been within the next couple of years, I went, oh, I love this. And then what happened was every single time I've seen it, and I will watch it, I watched it a lot. You know, every single time I am riveted, and it's one of those movies where you watch it and you just go, that is so good. Like frequently throughout and that's a Coen Brothers thing, but Fargo is really one of those ones that stands out almost because of its simplicity to me. Like everything is just underplayed in it all the time, and so they're accomplishing a lot without putting in a lot of obvious effort, I guess, if that makes sense. So I love it very much. It didn't quite at first, but I definitely came around, and I'm glad for that.
Ryan, how does that jive with your experience? Is it a movie that you liked right off the bat, or is it something that took a couple viewings before you realized the depth of it?
I was kind of there. Like I was a Coen Brothers fan at this point, and I was very excited to see it. Legendarily, it was part of my first movie hop I ever went on. Uh,
Whoa!
at the Westminster 10 in Westminster, California. I saw this movie, and as we all know, we can just say it along with me because it's a famous story. I saw Fargo and Sergeant Bilko in the same day, and then I went home. Two equal movies, I would say. And yeah, I think that there's less to gasp at than like Raising Arizona or Barton Fink of just like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. And I think that's so much of the point. We'll get to this, I'm sure, tonight, but like in a lot of ways, it's sort of like reading Watchmen as your first comic. You need decades of crime movies to know how this movie is doing it and doing it differently. And then, yeah, same as Josh. I kept watching it. I was like, I'm in the wrong here. And I didn't hate it. It was just like, why isn't this? Oh, now I see it as one of the greatest movies we've ever seen. Put it in. I've said this a lot, but in my top 5 of movies we've ever done on this show.
Yeah,
It reminds me of I feel the same way about Unforgiven. It's another one that I watched too young, and like because it's about westerns. It's taking the genre and subverting it sort of in a way while also doing it. I didn't get it at first. I was like, what was that? And then again, as you get older, you watch more movies, you have more literacy in it. This is very much like that, I think.
Or like if you haven't seen a lot of military comedies, maybe Sergeant Bilko isn't for you, and then you got to build up that resume for yourself.
I don't know
what kind of person goes and watches Sergeant Bilko and is not immediately transfixed and amazed. That's not. I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice, I think.
This
I've never
is
seen Sergeant
film.
Bilko.
I
want
saw
points
this
for not ever seeing Sergeant Bilko.
Okay, yeah, I will jot down. You get a couple points here. Has not seen Sergeant Bilko. Of course, you lost a couple points because you said at first you didn't get Fargo. That was honest of you, but it was wrong.
I was a moron at that point.
My history with this movie is I saw it when I was a young sliver of a lad, when I was just in high school, and I think I liked it, and I liked it for maybe slightly different reasons. I think it was very much billed like the preview is almost nonstop. This is the way these people talk. Can you believe it? And I think that I was like enamored of that. And I think that I got some of what it was doing, but I definitely felt like watching it this week, watching it a couple times in preparation for the show, a real deep sort of like appreciation for the intricacies of it and for the fact that it like doesn't do a lot to hold your hand. It's all there. It's all there to be understood. You see everything. In fact, like it's amazing how much of like what happens you actually see for yourself. And yet,
also, hey, modern movies. Fargo's 93 fucking minutes.
Dude, yes.
Take some notes, dude. Take some notes.
You got a day ahead of you. We know that. So here at Fargo, we're just going to go ahead. I definitely didn't feel like, you know what? I need 8.5 hours in this same universe, and I wish this were episodic. I love the show Fargo, but I think this movie very much illustrates the strengths of one feature film versus one season of television.
A crazy tight script that it just knows exactly what it's doing at every single frame and second. Again, that's something I don't think I could appreciate for a while, but now it's just like you've wasted no effort whatsoever. Everything on there is exactly what is intended.
It almost reminds me of like in a horror movie where you never see the bad guy running, but he always ends up so much farther ahead. Like the no scene seems to move quickly, and yet every time like the cuts in between the scenes or something, like it moves at a breakneck pace without ever feeling like it's rushing or you're missing anything. And that is a quiet accomplishment of the movie.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that most people listening will not understand, but back when there were DVDs, there was this test I would do where you could skip a chapter. And I know that sounds like a book, but movies would have these chapters, and how different the movie was. Just skipping one chapter was a good test of like the pacing. You know, and Fargo, if you skip one chapter, there's so many movies that are 3 hours long where you skip that chapter and it doesn't matter. You could have deleted that chapter from the movie, and Fargo never does anything like that.
Well, we are going to have to get deep into this movie, but before we do that, we have to take a short little teeny tiny itty bitty break. Fargo is the story of a husband, Jerry Lundegaard, who does not adequately respect his wife, and the story of a wife, Margie Gunderson, my God, these names, who goes out of her way to over-respect her B- husband. Along the way, killers, hookers, huge-ass Paul Bunyan statues, and more snow than a Miami Beach bathroom serve as the backdrop for a story about the heart of darkness lurking behind the saccharine smile. Margie Gunderson is a cop searching for the answers to a bizarre, violent roadside killing. What she discovers is a mystery that penetrates the veneer of Midwestern kindness to the seamy alternate reality of crime that exists right beside her own. Long before it inspired a franchise of TV shows, it was a singular movie that put Midwestern accents at the top of must-do characters when at a dinner party. Fargo has some of the hallmarks of film noir, moral ambiguity, an intricate plot, and an exploration of the underworld, but it isn't your classic film noir. The snow is blindingly not dark, for instance. But how do you feel the Coens are utilizing, subverting, or upending the tropes of the genre? Ryan, what do you think? How is this subverting the tropes of the genre of film noir?
I think that like my favorite genre is LA noir, but most of it is New York. And those places, those two cities are fucking disgusting and awful. Like just to be in them for even a second, you'll be part of a crime, you will maybe even plan out the crime. It's alleyways and shadows everywhere.
Is it true, Ryan, that if you even drive by New York, you will get shot several times?
Yeah, and also shoot somebody else. But
Just want to say I've lived in both of those cities.
have you recovered from your gunshots?
I've been stabbed several times, but the gun thing is a little exploitative on your part. I'm sorry.
Exaggeration. I apologize. But to set it here in what I always thought was Minnesota, but it's not. It's North Dakota. It's just you can see Minnesota from like where it takes place, where it's bright white, and now all of a sudden we have it's impossible to hide. You know, there's a lot of characters. You know, there's a lot of night scenes. Is what I'm trying to say, but for the most part, we're all out in the open right now, and we're trying to cover up what we're doing in a much different way. So right off the bat, it's different than it's a film, you know, Blanca. What's not noir?
Josh, do you see elements of the film noir in here?
I will admit to you that I can recognize noir when I see it, but I don't know that I'm fantastic at describing it in those terms. But I think that if you were to start right away, like the subversion of the genre is most obvious, you know, in the case of Marge. You know, Marge is not a hard-bitten criminal, but at the same time, they're not taking this little pregnant lady and making her incompetent. She is, in fact, the other way. She is completely competent. She, at no point in the film, doubts herself or makes mistakes or shirks her duty. She goes about it methodically. And it's interesting that you're talking about the fact that like the movie hums along, because the scenes with her doing her job are patient and measured. When she goes to check out the crime scene in the very beginning of it, you know, she walks around and she's sort of calmly, he's got little feet, and he's got big feet. It is not, she goes about her investigation in a really calm, you know, right up until the very end, undramatic way. Like it's very workaday. Like this is the thing she has to do. So all of that, you know, all the action takes place away from her. She doesn't end up in, you know, direct conflict until the very, very end of the thing, you know, and it's like a blip. And even that's pretty subdued. Taking out all of like the drama and the suspense lives in a different place, I guess, than in a noir movie.
That's such a good way to put it, because it's not just that Marge is the anti-noir character. She's almost an anti-movie character. Like, this is just not, you know, we want our characters to be glib and jaded and cynical and have quips. And that's almost
and especially in a noir, right, Ryan? Don't we want an anti-hero? Don't we want like someone who is like a drunk and a bad person? And
and in so many noirs there aren't cops. It's just like it's villains versus villains, and we're trying to pick which villain we're rooting for more. And then also when it's with Steve Buscemi, Peter Stormare, William H. Macy, it is plot. When it's with her, like we're talking about how fast this movie clips at, but there are so many scenes where she will say, "Oh, I got called into a murder investigation. I'm going to sit and have a breakfast with my husband. I'm going to go to the car, and I'm going to come back, and and tell him I need a jump." That's all in the movie. So that wouldn't happen in the other movie with any other hero or anti-hero.
After they Go, Josh.
And then at the end of it, she's got, she's got I can't think of his name, Peter Stormare's character. Um he just wants to sit in total fucking silence. I know that. She gives him this speech about morality and like, this it's she and she's funny because she goes, and it's a beautiful day. And it's like,
Yes.
it isn't. And but she is so
Bright
forthright and
yeah.
positive and like and again, not in a cynical way. We're not laughing at her, we're not making fun of her. And so through all of that stuff, even with her silly accent or whatever, and she won an Oscar obviously, but she's riveting by being so normal, so basic, as the kids say. And it's one of the unexpected things about it that I think it took me longer to appreciate, is that like they're subverting all of the movie things that you think you have to be the lead in a crime movie, and it works.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
Noirmal? Is that what we can call it? I think that speech that Josh is hitting on is so important, because in any other movie by any other actress or director, that's like the part at the end of Scrubs where JD does his little speech about all the themes that we just watched. And although she's doing it, she's on the verge of tears, and it's so organic. It's like Marge can't help but say these words. They're her thoughts coming out. And usually, like we talked about, she's just on the job. She's very professional. But like finally this like poetry has to escape her. Probably lost on Peter Stormare's character. I don't know if he changes his life after this, but not lost on us.
That's what I was thinking. Because go, Josh.
That's what's brilliant about his reaction to it, is that they did that I can't remember, Podofkin, the film thing where he doesn't make a face. You have to figure out what he's doing. He's basically staying neutral. So whatever it is that you think is happening in his mind, you are writing. So you put it there because he plays it totally blank. And that's another interesting thing. I think you said something earlier about giving us credit as an audience. That's another one of those things.
I do think that it's interesting because that speech is it fits with the movie perfectly, but she's giving it to like the one character who I don't think it actually addresses what's wrong with him, because I think a lot of people are in this for the money in this movie. He is in it for the violence. He is a classic Coen Brothers like avatar of murder and destruction, and he is basically more a force than a person.
Yeah.
And so like money is just a way he survives to get to the next job so that he can shoot people again. But watching the movie this time, I tried to figure out, when does he decide to kill Steve Buscemi? And I think it might be right in the beginning, when he says, I want to go to Pancake House. And Steve Buscemi says, we just had pancakes. What, are you a dummy? I think in that moment, he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. You do not make fun of me or the Pancake House.
So much of it was being a dad with a daughter in the car. Like, I want to go to Pancake House. I'm just like, we had it earlier. And then I see that look in her eye of like, I'm going to take an axe to you someday.
And then she like lights up a cigarette, but she will not roll down the window. Dude. That is so much your daughter. Are there any other genres? Like, I mean, obviously we've been talking about how it interacts with film noir. It's bright instead of dark. Although I do think it utilizes darkness like effectively, like when he's chasing down that poor innocent couple. That like the darkness is a very interesting companion. But are there any other genres that this movie draws from, Ryan, that you see like it engaging with beyond film noir?
I mean, the only other one is like and this is almost documentary style. Not that this is, but of like the Prairie Home Companion or some small town, like low budget Sundance movie, where it's about how people live their lives and how nothing happens. And the fact that this crime was concocted there, and not just like a, heat of the moment murder, but like a whole plotted out crime. How the town reacts to that is so weird. Marge has this line, and there's no explanation. I don't want one. But she figures out the crime immediately, and she's like, "Well, we know they didn't come from Brainerd." She just looks at it and she's like, "There's no way a Brainerd boy could do this." I don't know what that means, but there's so many movies that like have that small town feel,
And I mean, that's their number one issue, is that they think that is a world apart from their own, and what she learns is that it is a world that exists like woven into her regular world. I always thought of this movie as borrowing heavily from westerns as well, and I don't know if that's something I just like invented, or maybe because Fargo. But yeah, and I thought maybe musically you could kind of hear like the score kind of has that big swelling like John Ford style And so, yeah, I've always kind of thought of it as like a kind of like a new age or a new-ish Western.
I feel like because of who the Coens are and when they would have obviously grown up and fallen in love with film, obviously like Westerns would have been sort of that top genre through there to a couple of film nerds, growing up in the 60s and 50s or whatever it is. But it would have been it's almost like Star Wars is kind of in everything that people do in a certain way now. So it's kind of there. Those swelling chords, I know I can hear it in my head, but like all of those, when I was trying to think of the music, all I could think about them, but they're minor chords. Like it's a like a brooding or foreboding kind of sound the whole time. So it's almost like, I don't know. It's not horror, but it's letting you know that's like something's not right. This looks one way, but it's another. I mean, I would say that genre-wise, like it's a procedural to a certain. I mean, it really is about solving a crime, going through the steps. I mean, she works the case. I'm trying to think of I can.
And
think
you
of
see the
procedural TV
crime.
shows, but
That's
not
kind of
movies.
another way in which it's like a departure from film noir. And film noir,
Not
you
a
spend so much of
mystery.
the time being like, what the hell? Like, what happened here? Like in Third Man,
Mhm.
who was this third man? What's going on? You're trying to reconstruct this scene, and you have no idea how to do it. It's so interesting in this. You see it happen, and that helps you appreciate. Damn, she is really good at this because she's like right on about every detail. Essentially,
That's what one of my favorite lines in the movie is. One of the ones that I sort of say a lot when she's like, "I'm not sure I agree with your police work there, Lou."
Yes, yeah.
You know, and like it does a couple of things. One, she's really patient with people. Like
Right.
she's an excellent manager. Her
Yeah,
subordinate's a moron. But also that's one way of just saying she's so competent, and the way that she handles that is also competent. Like she understands and is just quick.
Lou is not a top cop, but yeah, she's gonna be the best mom of all time. I will tell you that. Like her patience is gonna come in very handy.
Well, excellent. We are going to leave that for the moment. And when we come back, we're going to make a little trip to a place called Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore!
Ah, yes. Here we are at wonderful, scenic Mount Rushmore. Kind of got that empty feeling you get when you get to Mount Rushmore, and it's like, yep, there it is, off in the distance. Whoo! I guess
Do
we're
we
in the
go home now,
neighborhood.
or-
Yeah. So, what do we do with the rest of our time in South Dakota? But no, today we're only talking about North Dakota. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about the 1996 Ghostbusters. If Ghostbusters had been made in 1996, and really, movie of the year, our policy is Ghostbusters should be made every year. And so 1996. What if we made Ghostbusters in 1996? So I'm looking for 4 big time stars and 1 Rick Moranis sized star. Let's go. Josh, you are our guest, and frankly, one of the most important guests we've had. So would you start us off? Who do you think belongs on this mountain of Ghostbusters?
If you say shit like that to Josh, he's gonna say Josh should be on the Mount Rushmore.
Put Josh on the mountain.
What I thought was, if I'm your most important guest,
Yeah, no, it's not a
I'm
big
so
podcast.
sorry. I'm not even the most important in this house. I'm 4. Okay. So this was very difficult to not just pick a bunch of people from SNL, which would be fair because most of the original cast was just SNL people, but we did our best. Okay, so Ray, David Schwimmer.
Ooh.
I have a David Schwimmer for Ray. Smart, little awkward, funny, really funny, can do physical, can do smart. He's a scientist on Friends.
We were on
Okay.
a bust.
Yeah, I love it. I think this is very good, and I'm inclined to put him straight up on the mountain. But instead, I want to see a little bit of the playing field. I want to know what I'm looking for here. You went for the biggest of the Friends stars in '96, the David Schwimmer experience.
We're not talking about
pallbearer
Jennifer
himself.
Aniston, I guess.
The biggest star in 1996 was Marcel the monkey, but please continue.
Oh man, went on to be an Outbreak, and we were just like, oh, we all had monkey fever.
I watched Outbreak my freshman year of college in my dorm room, and my roommate had a raging flu at the exact time that we watched it. And there was like 3 or 4 of us watching it, and he was in the bed dying behind us. We're like, we should do this.
Solidarity.
The
Okay,
monkey,
Ryan.
the monkey from Outbreak just came out of the TV like the girl from The Ring and attacked the roommate.
Ryan, I am guessing that your first pick is Marcel the monkey from the hit show Friends.
It is not. We might get back to Friends later, but I'm going to go with somebody who, this probably, I think, was his final peak, and it was a big one. I am going to go with somebody who was supposed to be in the first one, but now we can do it. Maybe he plays 2 roles. Maybe he plays 3 roles. Maybe one of his roles is in a fat suit, but I'm going to go with Eddie Murphy.
Ooh. Eddie Murphy. I love that. Again, my hand's going to just put him right on the mountain. Man. I mean, definitely like this is before things got bad for him, right? Like this is like when things are starting to get a little bit rocky.
Yes.
He made choices.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to go on a string of movies like Holy Man and all movies I saw in theaters. And
yes.
That's cool.
Okay. Let's see. I want to hear a few more. I want to hear at least one more. Josh, give me one more to potentially put on this mountain, and then I'm going to put one of these guys right on it.
Wait, you need one more Ray, or are we just whoever?
It's whoever.
It's kind of, open season.
Okay.
The only one that's get like locked in place is Rick Moranis, but the rest can kind of be free form.
Okay. So Winston, I was thinking long and hard about this. And I would try to avoid the I'm not going to find a black guy to play that character. That isn't the deal. He's the everyman. He's the working stiff. He's looking for a job.
The blue collar.
And he's coming in. Yeah, but and has presence. I'm going with John Goodman.
Oh, I love that. You will rarely be on a more John Goodman positive podcast than this. And on the same day, we're talking about Coen Brothers. We're probably going to be talking.
Is this one of the first Coen Brother movies without Goodman?
About Barton Fink. I am putting The Good Man right up on the list. That is a point for you, Josh. We have our first head on the mountain. It is John Goodman. And I love that for the Winston role, like the workaday blue collar guy. The guy like seems so big and friendly, but don't get him angry. Don't get him angry. All right, Ryan, one of the spots is taken. Who do you think also belongs on this mountain?
Before I get to that, Greg, and thank you so much for asking. Do you guys remember, are you old enough to remember what a revelation he was in a film called Arachnophobia?
Oh, yeah.
And he just came in.
I braved my greatest fear to go see that movie.
John Goodman?
Yeah, I'm terrified of John Goodman.
They projected him huge on the screen, Ryan. He appeared to be 25 feet tall.
I believe he is about 22 feet tall, so it was I do remember I was like, all right, I'm gonna go see it because it looks funny, and I really hated spiders, and then I never thought about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that is a movie that was big at the time that just didn't escape, had no escape velocity at all.
Wasn't good. Batteries not included. Right there with it.
But Josh, it is. I believe it is to you. Is that right?
No. Let me throw one out. Right.
Sorry.
I think that we don't have to have this thing where we either have boy Ghostbusters movies or girl Ghostbusters movies. So I can't remember what show she's on.
Because we'll just not have girl Ghostbusters movies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if that's the point. So I'm gonna throw out Jennifer Aniston as a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, I gotta put Jennifer Aniston right on the mountain. I think she is the friend with the most star power here. And I want a sort of an intramural ghost busting team. I don't know why. I think that for so long we've had either guys busting together or girls busting together.
It
and
makes
I'm
everybody
imagining
feel good.
We could get guys and girls busting at the same time, right? I mean, it might be hard.
Simultaneous busting is always the dream.
It might be hard to pull off, but I bet if we put our minds to it, we could get there, right?
And Jennifer Aniston on the Ghostbusters, it'd be it sound a little bit like this. Oh God. That's how SNL.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So.
I like it. All right, Josh. So now we really are back to you. Who else do you think belongs on our Ghostbusters squad?
I thought really hard about. See, I did this by the people because I took so maybe that was the wrong way, but whatever. I was trying to think of a Venkman-like character, which is somebody who is funny, incredibly confident, maybe not earned confidence, but just comfortable walking into a room We're talking about Coens, and I put George Clooney here.
Oh, very good. Yeah,
Because
that's
the idea here being that, listen, Bill Murray is kind of a funny looking guy.
Mhm.
I don't know that I can describe it, but he's funny looking. That's a
Mhm.
reference. And I couldn't think of anybody who had that kind of charisma and confidence who looked funny. But I did think of Clooney, who is funny and has that. That's sort of cool.
I get the impression that George Clooney is one of the few, maybe John Hamm, of I have to tone down my sense of humor for every role I take. Like I have all these ideas to like be funny, and he just can't do it because of the roles he takes. Michael Clayton isn't like pulling pranks on the other lawyers.
Okay, we're going into a lightning round of suggestions. We have 3 of our 4 Ghostbusters, and then we'll go to our special Moranis round. But Ryan, real quick, give me one more potential Ghostbuster.
I want to get all demographics in the theater. Maybe this is the new kid who just signed up. Maybe it's like an internship. But somebody who has been in minor hits. In our memories, they are major hits, but they are only minor hits. Adam Sandler should be a Ghostbuster in 1996.
San
Is on my list.
Doozle. All right, give me another one from your list, Josh.
Phil Hartman.
Oh, wow. Man, you would never guess you had not listened to this show before based on your answers. And in 1996, man, when did Phil Hartman
Soon
pass?
after.
Yeah, it's very close to now.
He might actually be able to play a ghost.
That's true, Greg.
Josh, was it too soon?
I don't
to
know
make
that I'm okay
joke?
with that.
No, okay,
it's
yeah.
like he's one of the. I don't care about most celebrities dying, is what I'm getting at. But I'm still sad about him.
Right?
Like I remember it happening. I just thought that is wrong because he had so much more to give. So you can make jokes about other people, but
like for instance, if you could just do a hot swap right now, don't we swap out Joe Rogan for Phil Hartman? Both news radio staples, but we could be living in the world where we still have Hartman and we don't have Rogan. Josh, would you sign off on that world?
I mean, I would, because that's like a Luca Anthony Davis kind of trade. That's
Ryan, such bad news for you.
Yeah, no, it's great to see here.
Josh is on fire, firing shots from downtown, much like Luca, off one leg. Well,
peanuts.
that is. I'm gonna give the last spot to Phil Hartman, so Josh gets yet another point there. And then how about our Morani? Ryan, who do you suggest be our Rick Moranis type?
I don't know if this Luca AD bullshit you're speaking of, but it's probably about golf or something. But I do know that one of the greatest basketball players of all time was in a huge movie this year. And I think Bugs Bunny from Space Jam should be our Rick Moranis in this Ghostbusters movie.
I love it. Josh, who do you propose as the Rick Moranis of our crew?
Actually, that's where I had Sandler.
Okay, so you want to say Sandler as the Rick Moranis?
Yeah, that's what, because he's kind of is the wacky, and he hadn't quite broken. Billy Madison actually came out in '96. No, that might be wrong. That might be right. I don't remember.
Check him on that one, listeners.
Anymore. I'm old. Yeah, but just could kind of do anything, be a little wacky, be funny. There's like a Rick Moranis is. It's like Bill Murray. Like there's no equal to
They broke the mold.
Like it has to be somebody else who's got a completely unique sense of humor and presence. So
they broke the mold like those dogs broke the statue. Ryan, do you remember that from Ghostbusters when the dogs broke the statue?
I do. Great. Yes.
I am giving it to Sandoozle because he exists, and I don't think we're going to have to get the rights for him or anything like that. He's just a human you can cast in movies in 1996. So, of course, that makes our Ghostbusters John Goodman, Jennifer Aniston, George Clooney, Phil Hartman. The stars of NBC are coming out to play, everybody. This is must-see TV at the
very
movies.
Thursday night heavy lineup.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're getting Adam Sandoozle as the Rick Moranis type, perhaps playing like the water boy character or the guy who likes to make his own sauce, the excited Southerner for fans of
or Slimer. Slimer and Adam Sandler have the exact same lexicon.
And, of course, Phil Hartman as a soon-to-be ghost. Spoilers for reality. When we come back, we are going to get to our second question and get back into talking about Fargo. I once knew a guy from the Midwest who refused to see this movie because its only purpose was to make fun of North Dakotans. That's obviously a ridiculous stance to take, but does the movie do that a little bit? What
It
is the
doesn't take
setting
place
add
in
to
North Dakota.
Where does it take place?
Isn't it in Minnesota? Yeah.
No,
it's
it
on
is.
It's on the border. Fargo and Brainerd are in North Dakota, but they see the
Yeah.
Twin Cities across the river. That's
Yeah.
the border of the states.
Well, all that area is kind of just the same big thing anyway.
See, that's what you're accusing the movie of. I'm sure the people in North Dakota are like, hey, we have a completely different type of non-identity than the people on the other side of that border.
It is, but isn't it Brainerd, North Dakota? Some of them live in North Dakota. Some of them live. They're like going back and forth. When they're in the Twin Cities, obviously that is Minneapolis. But then Fargo
shouldn't
is
have any ability to do any police work then out of state. That must be why I didn't think. I actually was watching. I was like, why is this called Fargo?
I mean, well,
I remember that coming up back in the day. You know, there was the whole true story card, but also, this is a Brainerd movie. I just don't think Brainerd plays.
I think that's part of. I think that is part of why I always thought it was a kind of like Western inflected, because Fargo is like. I mean, I think in part it's like these people, where they come from originally, they're Vikings. Then they, at some point in the history of their families, they were like pioneers and settlers fighting for every inch. And then at some point they became the super smiley, like super nice. And I think that sort of inherent tension.
It's not nice though.
Yeah, it's fake.
That's the whole thing. Like the whole movie is about that. Is the everything ugly that's happening under the very nice surface. That's the deal. If you heard, that's why they say Minnesota nice.
Yeah,
it's like, aren't you great, dear? You know,
the bless your heart style of.
Yeah. It's. I mean, and that's what the movie. I mean, that's kind of like underneath the surface of all this. These horrible crimes are taking place, and awful people. And it's not just the outsider, Steve Buscemi and the weird foreigner. It's Jerry Lundegaard. It's, you know, like it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I think, I don't know, more two-dimensional supporting characters in this movie that do seem very nice. But then that's when they're kind of, I don't know, like Jerry Lundegaard's wife is just always cooking up a thing, like whipping up a meal, and then, you know, gets kidnapped. And she is sort of made fun of. Like the two criminals will watch her run around with a mask on and just point and laugh at her. I think that the more interesting part of the movie, aside from Marge, is the main characters doing the thing that they have to do. But then as soon as the door closes or the phone slams, then we see them release and just become like all of that, oh, geez, just sort of goes away.
But at the same time, your protagonist, the center, the heart of the movie, Marge, is what she projects, as is her husband. You know, like they have this, like the center of that movie is this like rock solid sort of love and good intention and good feeling.
But
it coexists.
I watched this movie on a rainy day before I had to go to work. And those two just in blankets in bed in love. And then I had to leave the house. Oh, it made me so sad. I just wanted to be them talking about 3-cent stamps.
That's one way in which I feel like the movie has aged in an interesting way for me. I felt like there was almost like an American Gothic, like the painting The American Gothic, like almost a feeling of like quiet desperation in the more somber or the slower, more homely scenes in this movie. That like there is something, when I was a kid, I thought that like there was something almost sad about their home life. And it's funny because now I'm over 40, and those are the parts of the movie that look like that she's just struggling to get back to being in bed with her husband.
They're idyllic. Like
yeah,
they're laying in bed watching cockroach documentaries or whatever, cock docs as we call them, and they're waiting for their baby, and they're just in heaven.
Yeah. Although there is a little bit of tension there, and I wondered if you don't see them intimate with each other, and I wonder if like it's closing in on the you know, like getting near the end of the pregnancy, and I did feel like there is some sort of unacknowledged tension between them. And what is the?
You did call him a B- husband.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with your police work there, Greg. I think it's the one. Go ahead.
Can I make my case though? Because why does she go to the Twin Cities to see Mike Yamagita? Why does she get dressed up like so much to go see Mike Yamagita and not tell her husband I'm going to see Mike Yamagita. She says in front of him I'm going to do some police work there, but her intention really is to go see that guy from her past. And when she goes, she walks in, and not only is she as dressed up as Margie Gunderson can get dressed up, but she does the like touching the bottom of her hair and kind of bouncing it a little bit, which is international movie sign for like putting out a flirty energy. So like, let me just ask, what is the Mike Yamagita part? Why does she go see him? And what do we take from that if she's not sort of at least toying with the idea of something a little extracurricular?
I am baffled
mean,
by you. I'm disgusted. I can't believe you would ever.
I was gonna say, like,
things.
it's your show, but like
No,
that is an awful take.
Then okay, let me reduce it to just simply the question: a movie that we have lauded for its tightness, right? For being like everything, a very economical movie. Why does it include the Mike? And it's also, keep in mind, this movie is a meditation on marriage. So what is the Mike Yamagita? Why does she go to see this guy? Why is it in the movie? Why is it part of our 93 minutes?
I think that she is much like Josh. These two sad losers called me, and I will show up, and I will just do what they asked me to do. But I think that like she is an ultimate optimist and can't imagine that this would ever end the way that it does. Like, you can see her face horrified. This is probably the one time in the movie that she's anything remotely close to intimidated, because he moves over to her side of the booth and she isn't even that intimidated. Sorry. She just says, I prefer you get over there. And then he does.
I love that. That says everything about her, is that she doesn't like go along with it to make him comfortable. She tells him, no, there has to be this way. So, right away, I think she wasn't, I think that what she does, she's forthright. She went because somebody that she went through from high school called her, and she's like, okay, I'll do that thing. She was going there for police work. I mean, I don't think she's, it's not a realistic character in the fact that she's not malicious. Like, she's on the level. She's what Minnesota Nice is supposed to be without the subtext, but I will say, and I absolutely agree with this point, when I was making notes on this, I don't understand that scene. I don't really know why it's there. It's really uncomfortable.
Oh, it's fucking hard to watch, but
it's literally like a skip past type scene. Like, it is so hard to watch that it's like, as it's coming up in the movie, like, this is the only part of this I don't want to watch.
It's like the song Pawn Shop on Sublime, self-titled.
A lot like Pawn Shop, Ryan. That's definitely a point there.
But like it's a much more elongated version of, hey, husband, I need a jump, right? This is her day. This is her life. It's so procedural. But then also, this is her realizing, and maybe this is not enough for how long the scene is, but it's her realizing that she's capable of bad police work, because she was with such a desperate doof that she took him at his word. And then when she hears on the phone, oh, God, he was lying the entire time, I bet that other desperate doof, Jerry Lundegaard, was also lying. And that's when she pieces the whole thing together.
And goes back. I just think it's
bad.
I just think it's interesting because she doesn't tell Norm she's going to the Twin Cities. She says it in front of him. And I also noticed that Norm never makes eye contact with any of the male cops. He like is always very intentionally looking away from them. I think the movie's a reflection on masculinity. I think Norm is certainly set up as like sort of the masculine ideal in a lot of ways. But it's less accusing her and more just wondering about this one part of the movie that I can't quite sort into any category.
I think that that's the subversion. Norm is the housewife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna make you breakfast no matter what.
Right. And that's just flipping the script of everything. And you're not used to seeing a guy like that, and he plays it completely straight. You're like, is he dumb? And maybe he is, is he like,
Will he one day become the Zodiac Killer?
You got me. No, I was going to get there.
I think that in the breakfast scene, he's wearing an apron, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're putting it all out there for us.
He paints. He just wants to ice fish, and
he is the 3-cent stamp, right?
Yeah, he's the 3-cent stamp. And somebody's like, "Hey Norm, I thought you were gonna go ice fishing." He's like, "Oh, I am after lunch." I didn't know ice fishing was that readily available to them. Also, I thought they were at least at dinner with how much they're packing their plates, but that's just their lunch at this buffet.
It's a pregnant woman and a big dude. That's you're gonna get a lot of meatballs.
Plus, the more, not to like fat shame or anything, but the more you talk to Norm, the more chance you're going to get Arby's on you, which is my favorite line of the movie.
You're
by
getting
far.
Arby's on me. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at these entrepreneurial brothers, the Coens, and ask ourselves, have they really done anything for movies? The Coen Brothers. Can two brothers make any movies worth watching even one time ever? That is the question that Ryan has put before us, and we are going to try to answer it. I say yes. He says he's not so sure.
I think about just having like a dinner with my entire family and my brother's there, and how we can't get through that, and how they can direct, like, make movies together is so impressive.
But one of them was like, "I'm done."
Yeah, I don't
Like
want to.
eventually he got there.
Yeah. Safdies take note.
But it's
Well-
crazy because like I don't really know which one's which,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and they both take the credit. So I mean that's amazing. That's amazing. I don't have friends I can do that with.
No. Do you guys buy the story that Bill Murray signed on to Garfield because it was directed? It's Ethan Coen, and he thought it was a Coen Brothers movie, and so
No.
he signed on to. Okay, yeah.
I heard the rumor was he needed a rug. And so that was like a paycheck, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get a real doozy."
Is that a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar reference?
No, it's a reference to a story I heard that he took that. Someone asked him, "Why were you in Garfield? It's obviously going to be such a stupid movie." And he's like, "There was this really nice rug I wanted."
I thought that was a Big Lebowski joke.
It was not. It was based on a story I
You
heard.
should have said
one
it
time.
was.
But the rug probably did really tie the room together. So.
The cat peed all over it.
Spilt lasagna everywhere.
Let's see if The Big Lebowski is one of these movies that Ryan questions whether it should exist at all. Our first matchup is number 1 seed Blood Simple versus number 16 seed Raising Arizona. Josh, only one of these can move on. Which do you think it should be?
Because first of all, here's my great confession. I've never seen Raising Arizona. But I am
thought for
such a
sure
snob
you'd
that
say
I
Blood
have
Simple.
seen Blood Simple. Right. This is what it's the deal. Maybe I have seen it. I don't like Nick Cage. I know.
It's all around.
I've made you happy so many times. I
Yeah.
had to disappoint you somewhere. But still, it's Raising Arizona.
Ryan, that would be a huge upset, Ryan. If-
Greg, real quick, these are chronological order, so the seedings don't matter. These
Oh,
are
the
first two
seating
movies.
does not matter because it's chronological. Because I just saw Blood Simple because I thought it belonged to the last season that we did, but because of the weird way dates are, it turned out Blood Simple was not one of the movies.
Those sequential numbers.
Yeah, I really liked it though. I thought Blood Simple was very good. You could see all the ingredients there.
Francis
and
McDormand.
Francis McDormand,
Other
a weird
ingredients.
sort of like killer that like you're like, is this a person or is this just like some sort of force of nature? But Ryan, do you think that Blood Simple is better than Raising Arizona?
No, Blood Simple is maybe one of the best first movies of all time, but Raising Arizona is all of it. Like, I watched this movie a ton as a kid because my whole family liked it. Like, there's something for everyone, you know? My dad liked comedies. My mom liked mythical bikers that hunted down babies. So we all had a thing that we loved. It's Raising Arizona.
Well, moving on is Raising Arizona. Sorry, Blood Simple. I did everything I could for you, but in the end, it just wasn't happening. Number 8 seed for our next matchup, round 1, matchup 2, is 8 seed Miller's Crossing versus 9th seed Ryan Chant It With Me, Barton Fink. Barton Fink.
It's a
And-
classic rated R movie.
An R-rated movie to get the boys excited about. But Ryan, tell us a little bit about Miller's Crossing, because we've done an episode about Barton Fink. I think our listeners know what that is, but
Yeah, Miller's Crossing is another. It's definitely a lot like Fargo in that if it is your first crime, like this is closer to like The Godfather than film noir. But if it's your first of those, you'll be like, okay, that was fine. and then you watch more and you're like, oh my God, this is subverting everything or
Mm-hmm.
making those tropes better. I love Barton Fink. I think it's a flawed masterpiece, but Miller's Crossing is just, it's pretty perfect.
Well, sounds like one vote for Miller's Crossing. Josh, agree or agree to disagree?
I haven't seen both in a really long time, but I'm going with Barton Fink.
Does that mean it
It,
comes to me?
I
I
think
mean, it
so.
does. Barton Fink was more fun at the end of the day. That's
You
Barton
know,
Fink with John Goodman storming down the hallway as Satan.
man, I'll show
I
you the
watched
life
it
of the
when I was
mind.
in like film school in college, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
perfect."
I
I,
just
I when we did a show about it, like it was the kind of thing where I had already sort of liked it, but I had a weird taste in my mouth after the first time I saw it. And then by the time we were done with the show, I was like, I fucking love this movie. I'm gonna go with Barton Fink. Barton Fink over probably what many people would consider the more likely movie to move on, Miller's Crossing. But hey,
I will tell the audience that at no point on The Simpsons did anybody chant 3 times Miller's Crossing, Miller's Crossing.
yeah,
So that's why it's moving on.
it hurts you. It hurts you. If the Simpsons don't even reference you one time. Our next matchup is number 4, the Hudsucker Proxy versus number 13 seed Fargo. Josh, are you going to come on to the Fargo episode and argue that the Hudsucker Proxy should take it down?
I mean, I don't know what Anna Nicole Smith is worth, but unfortunately, it is not enough to defeat the brilliant Fargo. It's a charming little. I don't even know what to call that movie.
Farce?
Yeah,
I've never seen. This is my one Coen Brothers movie I've never seen.
Magical
He creates the hula hoop.
unrealism.
About hula hoops is all I know.
It's for kids. It's a circle. It's for kids. It's the Fargo show. Josh, sounds like you are a vote for.
It's a Fargo.
Ryan, sounds like you're also a vote for.
Yeah, it's Fargo.
How far you'll go. Our next matchup is number 5, The Big Lebowski versus number 12, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Starring
Ooh.
Ghostbuster George Clooney.
Starring Ghostbuster George Clooney, based on, Ryan, I'm going to flip your wig here, based on Homer's The Odyssey. Did you know Simpsons character Homer apparently wrote about the minivan The Odyssey?
I did, but thanks for letting the audience know.
Yeah, I
Um,
caught
4
everybody
years
up.
after I was out of school, it got a lot worse there, huh? I mean, I knew it got bad, but that quickly.
Things went downhill. Does anybody want to say anything about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, oh shit. Okay, I feel like Greg sort of predicted it, but I think Oh Brother Where Art Thou is better. I think that Big Lebowski is a solid first half and kind of a wonky, dumb second half. I don't think it's as funny as anybody thinks. I think Oh Brother Where Art Thou should move on. Go ahead.
Josh, what do you say?
This is really hard. I love both of those movies, but for different reasons. However, if I had to pick, I'd go with Ryan. I'd go with Oh Brother Where Art Thou. It's old timey. It's incredibly unique. It's got a lot of it. I don't think it takes a backseat to the things that have become pop culture norms for The Big Lebowski, which is also, iconic and legendary. But if I had to pick between one of the two of them to keep on my shelf, I'd go with Oh Brother.
Hey, Greg, I just saw that our downloads went down by 200%.
Yeah, unfortunately, people are tuning out from the live broadcast.
Here at the Hollywood Bowl.
I can go line for line on Big Lebowski, but
I just,
there
I
we
don't,
are. I don't make excuses.
it's too bumpy. It's just, yeah. And Greg, we don't care. What's the next one?
Okay, yeah. Well, I heard Christopher Nolan is remaking it, so I'm excited about that. Our next matchup is number 2, The Man Who Wasn't There versus number 15, No Country for Cold Men. Ryan, is this about North Dakota if it's No Country for Cold Men?
Probably, yeah. I just want to say real quick that The Man Who Wasn't There is a great noir before this absolutely gets lambasted. Super underseen. really like not enough people talk about how good this movie is. Billy Bob Thornton, Scarlett Johansson, those are actors in the film.
Oh,
But can it stand up to No Country for Old Men, Josh?
I remember seeing The Man Who Wasn't There in the theater and just walking out befuddled, and A, how I was still awake, and B, what I was supposed to have watched. And I am positive, because I do not know everything, and the Coen Brothers are geniuses, that there was definitely something there, and had I put more effort into it and come back around, I may have found out what it is. But I never did that. Because I don't need to sleep that much. And now No Country for Old Men is a modern masterpiece in every possible way.
Do you guys remember 2008? Where we would get movies like this and There Will Be Blood and
This
Zodiac.
was 2010, I think.
And it was just a wonderful time.
Yeah, no, it was a really like you had that sort of mid 90s thing, and then a really good spot in the middle, and then for some reason around 8, 9, 10, 11,
Everyone just gave up.
Oh, it was amazing. And then after that, they were like, yeah, people aren't paying for these anymore, and then we're like, all right, Avengers.
All right, so it sounds like, well, what's moving on? Ryan, what are you saying moves on?
Oh, No Country.
Josh, do you agree?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, No Country.
I mean, we could
for Old
flip a
Men.
coin.
Yeah. If Fargo shows us everything that happens in the story, No Country for Old Men. Sometimes most important elements of the movie taking place off screen. You get to arrive with the characters being like, "What's going on here?"
I'm sure if you went to Letterboxd right now, there'd be so many reviews that are like, "So what happened to Josh Brolin then?"
Yeah, why did Josh Brolin check out? What's going on? Where is he? Check out. That's a little motel humor. You could use that. Our next matchup, number 7, Burn After Reading. Confusing because it's a movie. Versus number 10, A Serious Man. Ryan, or Josh, let me ask you, is this a battle of lesser Coen Brothers movies?
It's a battle of harder Coen Brothers movies. The things that are obvious about them it's not as obvious what's good about them. They're also very, A Serious Man is very nichey. Like, my wife's Jewish, and we watched that movie, and she's like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
Like right away. But also as a very specific thing about like Jewish 60s culture in Minneapolis. When have you seen a movie about that? It's the weirdest, like it's very strange, and I think it could easily fail, but it doesn't. Amazing acting. Michael Stuhlbarg is as good as it gets, and I love that movie. Burn After Reading, I thought, got a really bad rap. It's really entertaining and weird, and now it's sort of been reduced to a Brad Pitt meme, and people forgot everything else about it.
Is that the one,
the one of him getting domed in the? Oh, yeah.
No, it's him dancing, and like
the dancing one,
like
yeah.
that,
Because I feel like I also see the one where he's like hiding behind the clothes, and and then the clothes get open, and he's
It does have Dennis from Always Sunny in it, which is a surprise.
I will say that the stock for Burn After Reading is going up like crazy. I haven't rewatched it since I saw it in theaters. I didn't love it then, and I fucking love A Serious Man.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah, I think I have to go with A Serious Man.
Ryan, it sounds like you agree, Ryan, do you?
Yeah. I think Burn After Reading is definitely due for a rewatch for me, a revisit, as podcasters
I did the same.
say.
I watched it and I didn't love it, and then I watched it many years later, and I was like, "Oh, this is entertaining."
Yeah,
I feel like it's a lot darker than other Coen Brothers, and you don't always realize that's where it's going. Yeah, but like I think it leans even heavier into the darker parts of their oeuvre. I do have to say, I love A Serious Man as well, a movie that ultimately is like, please stop trying to figure out this movie and just try watching it. And you're like, no, hold on, I think I've got it. And it's like, no, you don't have it. Please just watch the movie. We'll show you stuff. And you're like, no, I've almost figured it out. Which for this, like for our podcast, I think that's like the perfectly elusive movie, because it's like try to just be a viewer.
That's why it's hard to go to the movies with Greg, because we're watching like Independence Day, and he's like, I figured this movie out.
They're aliens, Ryan.
They're Mac-compatible aliens.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to give the aliens a code, a computer code. Number 3, True Grit versus number 14, Inside Llewellyn Davis. Ryan, again, I feel like these are not the major Coen Brothers movies.
Oh, I think ILD, as we call it on the Discord, is major. I love True Grit, but like I watched A Complete Unknown the other day, and I thought it was bullshit because I had seen Inside Llewyn Davis.
It's almost like which would almost be a prequel, right? Because at the end of Inside Llewyn Davis doesn't what's his name
Bob
come onto
Dylan?
the scene? Bob Dylan, yeah.
Yeah, he plugs in his
He's a
guitar.
complete unknown, Ryan. I can't remember his goddamn name, okay?
I'm sorry. But yeah, for me, it's Inside Llewyn Davis.
Josh,
I'm afraid
what do you
I'm
say?
again have to disagree with the police work. I watched Inside Llewyn Davis, and there was many things to appreciate it, but at the end, I don't think I really enjoyed it all that much. But I've watched True Grit many, 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 many times. I love that movie. I love the actors, like the cast in it. I mean, they always have good casts or whatever, but there's just something fun in everything that happens. I think. I mean, I would pick this over Big Lebowski in terms of, Jeff Bridges for sure. I'd go with True Grit every day, all day.
I saw ILD because I saw the scene where Adam Driver goes outer space, and I was like, I have to see this movie. That's the only scene that's like that in the entire movie. The rest of it it's kind of a drag. True Grit is a classic book, a classic film, and then this remake is further a classic. And I think
it's better than the classic film too.
I think it's better than the classic film.
That's not John Wayne's best. That burned you though, Greg, because you saw Adam Driver say a line from that Jim Jarmusch movie, and you were like, I gotta see it. Remember? What's the zombie one?
Ghouls.
Oh, and then it fucked you because you saw the Adam Driver line, go back to the club, and then you watched Megalopolis.
Gotta stop paying attention to what Adam Driver says in random scenes from those movies. And then the last matchup of this round 1, Hail Caesar versus The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Ryan, tell the people what The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is in case they don't know.
Netflix movie. Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, and it's 6, I want to say, maybe 5 stories set in Western times. Each one's cool. It's just hard. I've seen this movie the least out of all these movies, except for Hudsucker. Whereas I think Hail Caesar is a modern classic of the Coen Brothers.
Do you agree, Josh? I feel like Hail Caesar is one of their under the radar kind of classics.
I've seen them both. I don't remember a ton about it. An anthology movie is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're always going to have ones that work and ones that don't.
Well, not only that, like, it's just like if I'm in a movie, I want to hold on to a rope for the whole time and go through a thing, and I don't like being jerked back and forth. So, is it French Laundry? Is that the one that has like 3 different? Like, I don't like anthologies in a movie. I don't like anthologies for very much. I like them in comics, but that's it. Because you're in and out. But so I don't remember a ton about Hail Caesar, but I remember I think nobody liked it, and I liked it. I feel it was one of those things. It was under. What you're talking about, like lesser ones. I think this year where you've got to kind of had to really want to see them. I think, but I'd go with Hail Caesar. The Clooney factor is always gonna help.
He's so good, and he handles one plot line while Brolin handles the other. And I think that if you guys rewatch it, it's not only them saying, "All right, here's all the other genres we didn't have time for yet in our career," and so they do those so well. And then also all of the dark stuff in the midst of Hollywood.
Yeah.
What's funny though is that you said Hail Caesar, and I went, "Oh right." Completely forgot it existed.
I feel like that's the one that if you watch a just like trailer of it, it looks like a remake of Day of the Locust, right?
For sure.
But Hail Caesar is moving on. Shout out to the eponymous Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the first movie in that anthology about a singing cowboy that also straight murders people.
Yeah.
That was the only one that really like blew me away in that, and it was I thought very funny to watch this guy alternate between playing guitar and singing on his horse and just shooting people in the face.
Amazing performance by a great actor.
Yes. Let's move on to round 2, where we have Raising Arizona versus Barton Fink. Ryan, what do you say? What's moving on?
Raising Arizona.
Josh?
Raising Arizona.
Yeah, that one not particularly close. Our next matchup, though, this might be a head scratcher based on what you said in the first round. It's Fargo versus Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Josh, what's moving
Fargo.
on? Fargo.
Absolutely Fargo. Sorry, Greg, to interrupt. Did you want to ask me?
Ryan, what do you
Fargo.
think is Ryan, we didn't get that
Fargo.
clean, Ryan.
I'm sorry.
Ryan, what
For the drop next week. Fargo.
Fargo.
No Country for Old Men versus A Serious Man. Ryan.
No Country, but A Serious Man is a really good movie.
Josh.
What he said.
Yeah, right. Like I feel like don't come away with the impression that we didn't like A Serious Man. It's just No Country for Old Men.
Make a choice.
Yeah. True Grit versus Hail Caesar, Ryan.
I'm going Hail Caesar.
Josh.
True Grit.
I'm also going to go True Grit, and I'm sorry, Ryan, because I know we're jamming this down your throat, but that's just the way it is.
I love the movie. I like True Grit.
We are into the semifinals. The winner of these will go into the finals to face each other. Josh, it's Raising Arizona versus Fargo.
Fargo.
Wow, that's big. You said Fargo, Josh?
Fargo.
Ryan?
I know this is basic to just because this is the Fargo show, but it's Fargo.
Fargo moves into the finals. Ryan, No Country for Old Men versus True Grit.
All right. True Grit. I have voted against you 3 times, but now it's No Country for Old Men. It has to be No Country.
Josh?
Here's what I think. I think I like True Grit more, but I think No Country is a better movie. So, True Grit. Subjective.
So it's to me, Ryan?
It is.
I love your opinion, Josh, and I think that I might share it, to be honest, but No Country for Old Men is just, I think about it. I think about that movie like probably too much, seeing as hyper violent and very deeply nihilistic. But I do think about it a lot. So our finals, this feels good, guys. Our finals are, or rather is, Fargo versus No Country for Old Men. Ryan, shoot from the hip.
Oh God. No Country.
Josh.
I mean, if we're talking about the idea of I think about this a lot, it's Fargo. I think about it all the time. I watch it whenever it pops up in my head. It's like I'm on this episode for a reason. I'm saying Fargo.
Yeah, I think that No Country for Old Men gives us a very interesting experience. Fargo, I think, gives us a more like total experience. I think it understands and deals with more of the totality of existence by also bringing in a little bit of that niceness and a little bit of the love angle. It's infused with a feminine spirit that I think No Country for Old Men completely eschews to its detriment. So the winner of our bracket for Best Coen Brothers movie on the Fargo show is Fargo. We did it, guys.
You betcha.
We got there. When we come back, we are going to do more talking about Fargo since we've hardly gotten a chance to do that tonight. Much has been made about the title card that introduces the film, about Fargo being based on a true story. It was debunked months after the movie came out. But did we make too much of this back in the day? How big of a deal is it 30 years later? And why do we think they did it?
It's a great question because you see it the first time and you're used to seeing, it's a true story, and you watch the movie, and then afterwards, and also, you're thinking 1996, you didn't hop on the internet. I mean,
Yes.
You could have, you were a real nerd and it was real slow, but you didn't hop on the internet to check. You just went, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then as the years go by, you start going, I'd have heard of this. And it kind of occurs to you like, oh, it's not, and then I love it that they quintupled down or whatever, with the TV show, is that they're sticking with that. It's a true story and it's a lie.
Yeah.
And what's great about that is that you're supposed to trust that when you see it in a movie. This is a true story. Okay, it's a true story, but a movie's a lie.
Yeah.
And they're, I would like to say that they maybe they just think, this is a silly joke, or maybe it's this brilliant spot analysis of what storytelling is.
To me, it very much Yeah, I do. I totally agree that with your perspective on it. For me, it's the first card down on the table. You know, you're watching a movie and basically the director is putting down a series of cards on the table and you're slowly figuring out what the world is like, what the tone of the movie is like, what the characters are up to. And the first thing they say to us is that this is a true story. And I think it's not like so much a prank or a joke as it is what we're trying to do here is separate the artistry of a movie from reality as being two distinct things. You know, that these are kind of the same thing, that our reality is made of fiction and that we weave our fictions out of the realities of the world and that you can't separate those two things. And the title card makes us confront that because it purports to be true, and yet you can just sort of tell, I think, without looking it up, I think you can tell just by watching the movie that that's not a real thing. That it's not like that this isn't actually based on a story. But I feel like back in the day, like 96, we were, and perhaps it is the internet, we were just probing at this. And it almost felt like if a movie begins with a title card that says it's based on a true story, that's some sort of like almost like legal contract that like they can't say it's based on a true story if it's not.
But I mean, that's what the movie's telling you.
Yeah.
They can say it. And then like, so what, then you're like, what's true? All right. Well, if you're an actor, I've heard many actors say, you know, well, you have to believe in it. You have to be true to yourself. You have to be authentic. You have to. So is what Frances McDormand doing in that, is that true? Kind of not. Like what is the movie? What does the movie owe you? Does it have to tell you the truth? Do you want it to tell you the truth? Like, and then like this is the beauty of that title card, is that everything that we just said, maybe, you know, like it's great. It just leaves that interpretation up to you. And like, how cool is it that 29 years later, you're still thinking about that? And they put it in the TV show, and you know, like every time it shows up on that show, I'm like, what is that about? But it's not a confusing what is that about, at least if you're being thoughtful about it, or you enjoy that kind of like, did you enjoy the ending of The Sopranos? Then you probably like this. Did you not? Then you don't. I mean, it's like if you're a concrete thinker, you know, and it's not even a judgment on that, but I think there's a kind of person who likes that and a kind of doesn't. And I do.
The first time I ever remember this is there was a movie that has been kind of forgotten in the midst of time, but I was in middle school and a movie called Serial Mom came out, and it was about a mom who
Kathleen Turner.
Yes, yeah. The point for that, for recognizing Serial Mom.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, but it starts with a title card based on a true story. And I remember two friends of mine who were engaged in like a titanic struggle about whether or not that actually meant the events of Serial Mom really happened or not. Because again, it's an artificial construct. It is saying like, you know, could you imagine or these are things that happen in the world. Like maybe the actual events of Fargo didn't take place, but like they have tracked down a couple of analogous historical events that were similar to the things that happened in this. There was somebody in the area who killed his wife and put her through a wood chipper. And so that obviously that is mirrored in this. And there was another story about a guy who tried to have he paid to have his own wife killed. And so this is kidnapping and she ends up dead. But, you know what else made me...
There's based.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what else it made me kind of think of, Josh, was do you remember there was like this same sort of hoopla, but maybe magnified a couple times with the movie Blair Witch Project?
I kind of remember that.
Which was purported to be literally found footage, and like not like a movie made to simulate found footage, but rather they literally found this movie in the woods, and some kids were literally killed while making it.
I'll tell you what the difference is to me, and I don't know if there's any basis to this, is that to me, that felt like a marketing stunt.
Yeah.
Where this feels like a cinematic choice.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you know, when I say marketing stunt, that sounds negative, but actually like that helps sell the movie. That gets you interested in it. That, you know, makes you think about what it is, and that went along with the look and the feel of the movie. It gave you a reason to buy that it was shot on crappy video and
In the very early days of the internet, this was 99 for Blair Witch, obviously, but in the early days of the internet, they put up like a website that, was like supposed to have all the news on it about what had happened to these people.
it's brilliant.
And then, of course, did you ever read the novel by Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried?
Mm-mm.
But he does the same thing, which is he's writing like his autobiography kind of. And then early on in the book, he's like, hey, just so you know, this is not real. But then it seems like it's real. But then Tim O'Brien really did serve in Vietnam. But then he didn't serve with anybody that has the names of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
And he did the same thing the Coens have done, which is every time he's asked about it publicly, he gives a slightly different answer. And so it's built up this mythology about like, wait, how much of this is real, how much isn't? And his point was the same thing, which is I can't write an autobiography that is not a work of fiction because I am putting my own sort of like fictive reality on the events of my own life. So I am going to make that manifest by saying this is real when it's clearly not. And I think it's just the same thing here. It's like clearly we can tell these events as they're depicted are not the actual thing that happened. But we only need to open up a newspaper to see that these events are very much what this movie is very much based on real events.
I mean, nothing fantastical happened. Everything in it.
Yeah.
If you were told this was a real thing that happened, you'd be like, oh yeah, that works. That checks out.
Sometimes moments feel fantastical, but yeah, they are grounded in a reality. Oh, you know what that means? That is the sound of the speed round. This movie alleges that with Jose Feliciano, you've got no complaints. Josh, do you agree that with Jose Feliciano, you've got no complaints?
I'm afraid I can't agree with that.
This is
At least
a real
my personal taste.
It's just the idea of Steve Buscemi being like, when you come to this place, sometimes it's pretty nice, but sometimes it's not. It depends on whether or not you've got talent like Jose Feliciano playing himself in the movie.
What is Steve Buscemi? What is that character like that intersects with the rest of his life?
Yes.
Brilliant choice.
There's so much of the movie is explained to us and is shown to us, but so much that happens before the movie actually starts is just a mystery. Like, why does Jerry Gunderson need all this money? We don't know. Like, is he in debt? Has he been gambling? Or is he just going to like run away? We're not exactly sure what it is. Part of what we don't know is Shep.
They're going to get you on it, but you called him Jerry Gunderson, and it's Marge Gunderson. And
it's Jerry Lundergaard, right?
I mean, how could you possibly get those multisyllabic words mixed up? But I want to make sure that I get to say it, and not some random commenter.
That's true. You got it. I'm
sorry,
sure.
I threw you off.
That is totally okay. I'm not sure what. Because I was gonna say, I noticed watching it this time, that Jerry knows Shep, and Shep vouches for one of the two guys, but he vouches for the guy that's the Stone Cold Killer. So what the fuck is Steve Buscemi's character doing? Why does this Stone Cold, like, is it just the killer just needs a ride? Because
is that true?
Yeah, the first time
in my mind, I always thought that it was Steve Buscemi he vouched for.
No, he vouches for the other guy because he even says his name, and the other guy's name is like Grismond or something. Geir Grimsrud, very Grimsrud, which is like sounds like a very like medieval Viking style name, but that's the guy Shep actually vouches for. So we're never quite sure why Carl Showalter is on the scene or what he's doing.
I mean, I think maybe we should have not put our trust in Shep Proudfoot.
Dude, there's a lot. That's one of the ways in which Jerry is a complete idiot. You just went to like one of the mechanics and you're like, could you hook me up with some heavies?
I mean, Jerry makes bad choices consistently.
Characters in this movie repeatedly struggle to describe exactly why Steve Buscemi is funny looking. Josh, can you describe the specific way in which Steve Buscemi is funny looking?
All right, he's got weird eyes that have sort of a ring around them.
Yes.
And he's got a tooth that sticks out further than the rest of him.
Yes.
His teeth don't sit in his mouth right. And it doesn't make him, I was going to say it doesn't make him ugly. It just makes him look like Steve Buscemi, who looks like no one else on earth.
Yeah, you nailed it. First of all, nobody talked about his eyes in the movie. Nobody could just. I felt like I was talking to my students here, where I was like, "Be specific," and they're like, "We don't know how to be specific." I'm like, "Please be specific," and they're like, "We can't. We can only give you our general impressions of things." She is begging anybody to describe the way in which this guy is funny looking, and nobody even like points out his eyes. They just can't. There's in a general way. He looks like he probably plays some sort of snow weasel in the Ice Age movies. Josh, is this the most pro Arby's piece of media in history?
I mean, I watch a lot of basketball and they play those commercials with Ving Rhames constantly saying we have the meat, which is I mean, it's like Nazi propaganda pro Arby's. And so it's hard for me to get past that. In a fictional sense, it might be. It might be. Arby's is often the butt of the joke.
Yes.
Although in this, it is not so for the characters, but perhaps for the filmmakers, it is not a positive comment on Arby's.
I think this
They
is
have something called horsey sauce.
What are you doing?
I think this is literally product placement. I think Arby's paid to be in this movie, and there are a few movies where characters talk about Arby's, but I don't think any of them where as they're bringing in the Arby's, they quickly cut to a shot of a bunch of earthworms, and he goes, lunch.
I always love to think of when the people at Arby's Corp get the tape back and they watch it, and just to like, do they get disappointed? Do they not get it? Do they try to justify and convince themselves that what just happened was great? It's a beautiful scene.
I always imagine this about like the executives at Arby's or like the Taco Bell Corporation or whatever. These are people that make, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do they ever one time eat Arby's? Like, if you're one of the higher ups at Arby's, the last thing you're going to eat is Arby's, right?
All right. I believe you have students, you work in academia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct.
In corporations, the people who get to the top tend to be true believers, in my experience. And so, even if they don't necessarily eat it themselves, they do believe it is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not like we're shoveling this crap to kid. It isn't.
Because you can't actually like sustain that and make it. You have to be like, I believe in it.
Corporate leaders are more like cheerleaders than anything else, because they're trying to keep everybody, they're trying to get you excited, which works for some of the staff and not. So yes, and I believe that the more niche, like Arby's is a very specific thing. And so I think if you're at Arby's, you're kind of, because it's like an old timey food thing, like it's not like a fresh new hot brand that the kids are going to want. Like, you got to be down with Arby's. I'm guessing the Arby's leadership is quite entrenched. That's my guess.
It's probably some old crusty family like the Keers from Severance who've owned Arby's for 150 years.
Steve Arby Jr.
Josh, would you say this is the least ACAB movie in history?
I don't know what that means.
All cops are bastards. Is this which the question is really, is this movie a little bit pro cop?
I think it and Coen Brothers are pro good people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's so much about her being a good cop. I think it's about her being a good person.
Yeah.
Which is what you want in a cop. I would say I want to believe that there are good people in the world, hopefully in positions of authority, hopefully in positions to, and in this one, you just like, you have a good person in a good position and it's good. So it's pro the idea of the possibility of a good cop.
Yeah, right. That like, as long as you get a person who is suited to the job, there's nothing inherently like soul destroying about the job in such a way that you can't possibly do it.
Listen, though, I've never seen her pull over a couple of black teenagers.
Well, you could choose from
best.
You could choose from any of the characters of color that you want to, Josh. And in fact, maybe that'll be something we talk about in our next segment, where we give this movie awards. And before we leave, one recommendation. Awards. This movie did okay at the Oscars, right? Didn't this win some Oscars? Somebody check my math on this movie.
Best actress and wasn't best film, was it?
Screenplay, I think.
Okay.
Best actress, best screenplay. You heard it here first. But that's not enough. Is it? No. A movie like this deserves to win all the awards, and by God, tonight it will. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. What is our best pound for pound performance? Let's come in hot. Let's start hot.
Okay, let's put Best Picture up first. Greg, you know me. You know that I want to say Kristen Rudrud as William H. Macy's wife or something crazy like that. How could you not pick Frances McDormand? Franny Mac it's one of the best performances in film history. It's in clip shows of like movies, not even best actress performances, just movies. She's amazing.
All right, Frances McDormand, according to Ryan. Do you agree, Josh?
I agree, except she won the Academy Award, and we all know that. If I had to go a different way, in a completely opposite sort of, Bill Macy gets overshadowed in a way, in doing a role where he 1,000% encompasses a sniveling, useless coward in every respect. And at this exact same time, he is on ER as Dr. Morgenstern, who is like the symbol of confidence and cool. And he comes over and he does this movie, and he is loathsome in every single way. He is a liar. He is a bad liar. He's a shitty father and husband. He's what... Like when people say car salesmen are slimy, he was like, I got this. I'm on that. And he just, and at the same time, you're combining it with the Minnesota Nice, and you get to see it crack. And Bill Macy is an amazing actor, but this is unlike any of the stuff he does. He's and we're like, it was the words pound for pound. I was like, every second he is inhabiting this awful character.
The father thing is such a good point. He's fully enveloped in his crime dynasty that he's starting. And then somebody's like, oh, what about Billy or whatever the kid's name is? Like,
Scotty.
Oh, Scotty. Oh, yeah, I have a son. And that motherfucker did not think about that for 1 second of this.
The best part is when he then goes and talks to Scotty, and he's like, don't worry, Scotty, they're not going to want to hurt her. And he's like, but Scotty looks at him, he's like, but Dad, what if something goes wrong? And again, you can see William H. Macy hadn't really thought about, wait, yeah, because if two criminals have your wife,
It's the bit where he's telling him, if anybody calls, just tell them that your mom's gone to Florida or whatever. And I was like, your son has had his mother kidnapped, and you want him to lie to people on the phone.
This kid can barely generate the energy to play the accordion, which is for a North Dakota kid. That's pretty bad, especially someone who has an accordion king poster right on his door. I think before the arguments I would have said Franny Mac, but then Bill Macy is going to take it. Bill H. Macy is going to take it.
Who later got into a crime sort of thing of his own, where his wife got arrested for trying to fix college tuition.
No, his wife did.
Yeah.
His wife did.
It was the wife.
Yeah, man.
But also, and I know, I talked about it, but that very last scene where they drag him out of the window and he's screaming and crying
like a little bitch.
I know, but it is so sad and pathetic, and I believed it.
Yeah,
and it's like the final transformation of what happens to this scum.
He was supposed to be. He was told his entire life he's going to have a life like Norman Marge, and something went awry, and now he's in a hotel bed grunting like that. Yeah. Yes. Honestly, Greg, I love Franny Mac. It's a good choice.
I read that he was supposed to have a smaller part, but they were so blown away by his reading that they gave him a...
Did you read the joke?
No.
He read for a smaller part. They called him in for Jerry, and he read for it. And then he went back the next audition, and he said, well, if you don't give me this part, you're going to ruin your movie. And then sort of laughed, but it was so pathetic and attempted to be cool, but not at all, that they were like, oh my God, this is Jerry.
You've got it down to the bones.
Is that a true story?
It's based on a true story. Josh, this movie is full of many directorial choices, but what is the director's signature move in this, do you think?
This was so hard because it's the Coen Brothers.
Yeah. So it feels like everything.
Well, everything is thoughtful. Everything is planned. There's nothing throwaway in this. So it came down to me to be like, all right, what is it that explain the movie to me? And I'm gonna go with a scene, or at least is when we'd mentioned it earlier, when Marge is investigating the crime scene. She doesn't show up for 33 minutes, so she's the shark. She doesn't show up until, the movie's been going on for quite a while, and we meet her, and this is when you start to subvert all the expectations of the movies. Oh, here's this funny little pregnant lady, and she's calm and measured and competent, and it's kind of funny. And you have the scene where like, "Are you okay there?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just throwing up," or whatever, like
Think
got
I'm
a
gonna
morning
puke.
sickness.
Yeah, barf. Yeah.
But at the same time, like she sucks it up and she does it. She gets on with her job. She's got to make up for Lou's lack. Uh, but that to me tells me who she is, and that's who the movie is about. Is this woman existing in a world that she's too good for?
Love it. Love it. Ryan, what do you think? What's the Coen Brothers signature here?
Yeah, I wanted to go with like a camera move, like the shot of the
Pick
parking
one
lot.
that's like,
Yeah, it's so hard. The parking lot with all of the planters like patterned out, the overhead, and they're walking through, or the car coming over the hill. We were talking about
Mhm.
Carter Burwell's score and how it hits in these minor keys instead of majors, and it's not a cowboy walking into the saloon; it's a car driving over a hill.
Mhm.
That's all. But I had to go with Marge, and I had to go with the speech to Peter Stormare because
Mhm.
we didn't get that really at the end of Barton Fink, and we definitely did not get it in No Country or A Serious Man.
Yeah.
We were on our fucking own, but like those
This
movies,
movie has a beginning, middle, and end. None
Yeah.
of those do.
this movie starred Marge, and if Marge was in those movies, she might have given it to us. It wasn't the Coen Brothers; it was this fictional character working through them, which sounds very artsy fartsy, but like Marge had to basically sum up not just this movie but every Coen Brothers movie because she just couldn't. It's such a good moment.
I love it.
That's
I'm
cool.
going to give that one to you, Ryan. Unfortunately, we've always got to come to this moment. Did anything in this movie make you cringe, Ryan?
Yeah, and we just talked about it. And like there's stuff where, we're trying to watch these movies and it's 30 years later or whatever, 35 years later, and I just looked at my calendar for the year to see what year it was. This is 30 years
Do you
later.
have a calendar?
I just
Yeah,
looked
what
at my-
year does it say? 1984? Burned.
What were we doing? Oh, and like what is that, did they say some weird word, that like we don't say anymore? But for me, the cringiest moment, the moment I will always feel is Jerry's grunt getting arrested. He just keeps doing it and it hits me as hard as it hits him.
I love it. What do you say, Josh?
This one was hard because I feel like anything in here that was cringy is meant to be, and the characters are like, the director's aware of it. So it's not like, if you watch Police Academy now, you're like, ooh, you wouldn't do that today.
Whoa.
This isn't that kind of thing. I mean, the closest that I could come is that maybe we're not being the most sensitive about Shep Proudfoot. There's a couple of bad Indian jokes, which again, the characters are doing and it's bad, but at the same time, like, they're portraying him as fairly stereotypical and not like every Native American character has to be a hero or a wonderful person, but like, he speaks slowly and is kind of seems kind of thick, and I don't think you get away with that now, nor should you.
Yeah.
There's one scene where somebody, I think it's Marge actually, hears his name and she's like, "What? Proud what?"
Yeah.
What is that crazy name you just said?
But she would do that.
Yeah. I'm gonna give this one to Ryan, and I would have given extra points if anybody picked mine, which would be the whole Mike Yamagita scene.
That was what
yeah.
that was on my, I mean, that was right there.
Part of the
Yeah.
movie that's hard to figure out exactly even what's going on there, but for sure, I don't want to see that guy cry, and then finding out it's all a weird lie at the end anyway. Woo!
I can't
Boy.
tell
It's
you.
funny because in a normal movie, you'd be like, why did you leave that in? That doesn't need to be here. You're like, there must be a reason.
Yeah,
What
no,
is the
totally.
value of it? And we're still thinking about it.
I can't tell you how much of my life I spend just like Marge's look of like not at him but sort of down and just like kind of smiling but not, just that awkward like what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Slang. We're looking for the best slang from our 1996 movie that's set in 1987 in a land that looks like it's about 1971 at the time of filming. Josh, what was your pick for slang?
I don't know that I understand this question so much, so bear with me. Because I was looking for like, like their slang of the time. You say, oh, it's radical or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, I'll tell you here what I'll tell you. My wife and I are constantly talking about total fucking silence. See how you like it. Because see how you like it is not a thing that adults say. But he's 100% committed, and that may have gotten him killed.
Yeah.
See how you like it.
See how you like it.
Ryan,
he's
before
like, I've got him here.
we can talk a little shop here. Before this season started, this category was 90s slang. And Ryan, you said to Mike, a lot of the movies of the 96 season are not set in the 90s. So do you want to change 90s slang? And Mike said, no, thank you. And there's like 2 movies from this year that are actually set in the 90s. So we all have to kind of like make a case for our picks. Ryan, what is your pick for slang?
You want to talk about cases, Greg? Here we go. There's a couple characters who say, for Pete's sake. And I believe they're saying that because of the hit TV show, The Adventures of Pete and Pete, which ran from 1992 to 1996.
My mom said that way before.
I'm giving Josh points for this. This is ridiculous. Although I am going to say I do like for Pete's sake. I love that thing of like they don't like to swear, so they have a lot of these swear analogs. But there's that part where the guy gets so angry in the car dealership that he decides he's going to drop the F-bomb, but he has to like rev himself up to even do it because he's so unaccustomed to it.
And his wife is like, no.
Oh,
yeah, he's going to unleash
hand
the
on the
F.
knee.
Yeah.
But like the cursing never changes. Like whatever happens, it's always like your wife could die or you got a flat tire. So for Pete's sake.
The grandpa gets shot in the chest and he goes, "Aw, jeez."
Although it shows how it's not generational because Scotty is like, "Mom, I'm eating my fucking cereal. What do you want from me?"
This seems like the best point for me to bring you my Harv Presnell anecdote.
Please do.
So Harv Presnell is the one who plays the father-in-law, and he was also famously in he was in Saving Private Ryan. He was in a lot of movies the rest of the time. He's a professional curmudgeon. In the late 90s, I went to a communication school, and a lot of people do a semester in Los Angeles, and they house you in the Oakwood Apartments, which is across the street from the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. And in the Oakwoods they're temporary furnished apartments, and above us lived Harv Presnell, and the place is full of college students and lots of people from all over the place, and young actors and everything. And he would just yell out at night for everybody to shut the fuck up. I'm trying to sleep. Why can't you all be quiet? That is my first experience with that man. And he was crankier than the person he plays in the movie. Like, he was so mad that anybody was making any noise at all. And again, surrounded by college kids.
I noticed watching the movie this time that for his like first 7 or 8 minutes of screen time, he only like grunts or makes sounds. He doesn't say a line until like the third scene that he's in. He just goes,
Gophers.
Gophers.
Oh, you shouldn't be going to McDonald's. I just imagine young Josh watching this movie just being like, this is the best Harv Presnell has ever like been. Like, he just seems like a really cool guy right now.
He's like,
my dreams shattered.
You know what they're doing at that McDonald's, right? Bro, what do you think they're doing at the McDonald's? Like,
they're rooting against the Gophers.
Paint a picture.
I mean, he says it's not milkshakes, but I went to McDonald's when I was an adolescent. I mean, it wasn't. It may have been fries, but it really wasn't. It's like we were eating unhealthy food and a lot of soda. You know, I don't think Scotty's into the drugs. I don't know.
Well,
not yet. After this, forget it.
Yes.
Ryan, how about our music moment of the movie?
It's got to be the opening scene. It's just got to be that car going over the hill. Like, it like chills to this day, and it's It's hard because Carter Burwell is not John Williams in that we can't hum his main theme of Fargo, you know? Like it's not there, but when you hear those chords being hit, like a fucking
You literally can't hum it.
right.
Like you'd
But,
need
like,
3 people.
Just
Minimum.
exactly. Yeah. If we could all work for a year and
Yeah.
doing the harmonies, we might be able to. But like it's so and like this is one of the main things that the Fargo TV show kept is that when each season starts, we get those notes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what I had.
You see, the same thing, Josh. Yeah.
Frozen Road, music sting.
Yeah, you get like the very simple imagery and then the very like profound music, and I think that really does set you up for the movie. Also, another, not to keep harping on this, but another shout out to like the possible like Western notes throughout this, but that's sort of like coming over the horizon and being like a black splotch on a white. That like reminds me of someone coming in out of like the desert or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And like in Westerns it's brown and Fargo it's white, but like there's so much land and you're just a tiny speck.
Okay, so you both get it for that because that is, I think, a good. Another honorable mention is there's a cover of "These Boots Are Made for Walking," and the song is whatever, but the way it links 2 scenes because it's playing on the radio, and so at the same moment you hear it playing like while Shep and William H. Macy are talking, and then it cuts to the 2 killers driving down the road, and like I just thought that was a kind of a cool move that linked those 2 things. But certainly the opening has like all the gravitas you need. Up next is recommendations. I'm going to go first because I'm a cheeky little monkey, and I'm going to recommend that you watch the previously mentioned True Grit, the Coen Brothers version of the movie. Honestly, I think the Coen Brothers version is better than the 1969 version, but I like that version too. That's also a fun movie. But above both of those, read the book by Charles Portis. True Grit is an amazing book. And it has the same sort of momentum and personality that I think you get in Fargo, and that sort of like the essence of what True Grit is contained in this little girl character, and I just think that it's such a marvelous book. And I could see the Coen brothers being like, we want to make this book into a movie, although probably the original movie has something to do with it as well.
A Western book.
Huh. Yeah, dude. Yeah, they've thought of everything, Ryan.
Yeah, they really have.
Josh, do you have a recommendation for our fine listeners?
Man, I thought about this really hard, and when it came to cinema, I was like, there's nothing comparable to the Coens that I'm aware of, other than other Coen Brothers movies. But even those are so dissimilar to one another. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of a weird sense of humor and some violence, but those are just things. And this is, I guess, is a pedestrian answer, but I think that if you want more of this, I think the TV series is a fascinating place to go. If you really love this movie, I know I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a television series based on a movie as esoteric and strange as this, and then to have it be successful in its execution. I mean,
and it's all riffs on the original movie. Like you can
and that is
see,
the
like
point.
yeah,
when you watch, like, there's themes that keep coming up, and sometimes they steal some of those themes from other Coen Brothers movies, just as little asides. But you know, this one is like good and evil. There's a lady cop. There's some force of nature, evil, powerful person. There's there's a good cop somewhere, and then, there's a bad person or a weak person. The first season is the one that most aligns with it. And actually, they indicate that this is in the same universe because Oscar, what's his name? Or Oliver, I can't think of his name. The actor finds the same suitcase that Steve Buscemi buried. And then he opens his, like that.
Grocery stores? It's like Oliver Platt, right? Opens grocery
Oliver
store.
Platt, thank you.
yes, the grocery king of.
So to watch through that series and see somebody else who manages to have the ability and the talent to capture what worked about this in these really interesting, subtle, and thematic ways, that works. It isn't hacky. It's amazing. Like I wouldn't trade the movie for the shows or anything, but as a companion piece, if you love the movie, I can't imagine you don't appreciate that show, except the 4th season.
I mean, we're like 6 seasons in or 5 at this point, and so we all love the seasons, but if you go back, like we were like a Fargo TV show, absolutely not.
Oh,
And
100%.
because I have social and or parasocial relationships with both of you, Noah Hawley, the creator of Fargo, the TV show, is. Do you guys know what he's doing next? This is just for the two of you.
I do, but I don't remember. Maybe.
Alien.
True.
He's bringing
Oh!
Alien to TV.
He's the
Oh my
aliens on
God.
Earth person?
Yes. This is what he has tackled Fargo, and now it's Alien time.
Oh my God. I didn't.
I have to say, I feel like I'm so. I don't want to say I'm against that Alien TV show, but I just can't believe they're going to Earth. The one thing that the series has purposefully never done, so that we never know exactly what's going on. They're like, now we're going to do the one thing we've never done before. Seems like a strong choice for a TV show.
I'm just really worried about the xenomorphs hitting New York, and like they get shot, and then the xenomorphs are shooting other people. Yeah.
Then
It's
their acid blood's getting everywhere.
I know.
I mean, you don't want to get them to get their hands on those guns.
I
They're
know.
everywhere.
Or
And
at the
what
very
if-
least knives.
What if the xenomorphs get addicted to crack? Because that's probably going to happen.
In New York? Of course it is.
I mean, for one thing, and nobody's going to bring this up, but the traffic.
Oof.
Having never been to New York, I think of New York roughly as Narnia. Like, same fantasy rules. Like, it's just a magical, mystical place.
No, it's a dirty place that smells like urine, full of people who are incredibly aggressive for no reason because they've been crowded their entire life. New York City is a place where garbage piles up whenever for no particular reason, and people stop you on the side of the road repeatedly and ask you how much your dog cost. That's not a joke.
Oh, I'd
I
shoot
was
that
in New York
motherfucker.
City. My son was 1 year old, and I saw yet again two more people arguing with each other and swearing at each other for no particular reason. And I thought, well, I can't raise him here.
Yeah. Did you bail from the city because you had a kid?
Partially, and partially because I got there when I was too old and didn't have enough money.
Oh, yeah.
Like if I had been there in my 20s, it would have been great. I'm really glad I lived there and I learned how to navigate the city. And there's something absolutely wonderful about the place. There's a lot of things. There's a reason that it's New York, but it's a hard place to live. I think if you either don't have a lot of money or you didn't grow up there or both.
I feel like New York City the same way I feel about tattoos. If I had done it earlier, cool. But I haven't done it yet, so I'm never going to do it.
Concrete Jungle, Where Dreams Are Made Of. Ryan, what is your recommendation?
Another one of my favorite genres is people who are not involved in crime getting way too over their heads and making stupid decisions. So Sam Raimi's A Simple Plan is one of my favorite movies, but I think I've recommended that before. So I'm going to go with Sidney Lumet's last movie, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, where Ethan Hawke and Philip Seymour Hoffman play brothers. And they're just like, we're going to steal all of our rich parents' money. And these are not like Coen Brothers who can make art together. These are like real brothers who stab each other in the back at a nonstop rate.
Hate each other all the time.
Every scene is, I think I'm making the right decision. Oh, fuck, it's the wrong decision through the entire. I can't, like,
My
recommend
life
this
is
movie
just
highly
like
enough.
that.
It's such a good movie. And it's like this 83-year-old who still guts it, you know?
Well, great recommendations, everybody. And I'm going to recommend for myself that I say who won this show. Obviously, it's the listeners. They win every single episode. But in a very much more realistic way, it was Josh who scored 42 points. Ryan, versus your 30 points. You got weirdly quiet there.
Wow.
You got weirdly quiet there for a while, big guy. Sort of let just me and Josh do some rapping, and he really accrued some points during that
I
period.
hope I didn't just win because of injury timeout.
Oh, yeah. I twisted an ankle, which is a major podcast injury,
Oh,
and I just had
yeah.
to go off the mic for a bit.
Josh, as the victor tonight, I would like you to think about some of these movies. Trainspotting, Cable Guy, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mission Impossible, Jerry Maguire, That Thing You Do. When I say that lineup to you and then I say Fargo, how do you think Fargo is going to do in our end of season bracket?
I mean, it's got to be pretty far up there. I will say it depends on what you like in terms of a genre, because a Trainspotting and a Mission Impossible are quite far apart from one another. But when you said that, Trainspotting, same sort of time, like that movie blew my mind at exactly the right time.
Right.
I'm 19 years old, whereas this movie took me a little while to appreciate and understand it because I think I was young. And like I came from a trailer park in Maine. Like I mean like I didn't it took me a little while to get up to culture. Train spotting immediately. I think visually it sort of assaults you in that way. Those two for me are desert island films. Such to the fact that you mentioned the other movies are fun. They're nostalgic. Not all of them. I don't remember the entire list because I have no short-term memory anymore. But you're gonna like That Thing You Do. Great movie, super fun. Tom Hanks, it's got music. It's not in the same race.
Yeah,
it's JV. My partners, by the way, on iFanboy are going to stew me, for saying that. But if we're talking about cinema, we're talking about snobby, like something that you can watch over and over that isn't like, oh, it makes me laugh because I remember the time. But this isn't that.
I've heard that Thing You Do is directed by a G-Dot.
G-Dat, great
G-Dat.
goddamn American treasure. He's the original G-Dat.
But if we could go from Maine and Train Spotting, have you seen Lahane?
Forever ago, I saw it my freshman year of college, and it was again like one of the first sort of foreign films that I've been like, oh my God, it's great. And I remember loving it. I don't remember anything about it, but I also don't know if I thought it was cool to love it.
Yeah, no, I do think it's cool to love it for sure. But that's my big concern is Lahane versus Train Spotting and then Fargo versus the rest.
What year I don't know if Delicatessen was the other movie that I fell in love with around that time. And I think it may be about the same, but I'm not sure. But that was about the same time as Lahane.
It was definitely one of those of like, where kids our age were like, I watch foreign films. And then they'll bring up Delicatessen. And that guy went on.
I think it was.
He made an Alien.
I think it was
right?
that. Yes, he did. He did 4, and I think Fincher did 3, or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the director lineup for those movies are insane.
I know.
Yes, yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is like, people want to like foreign movies and say they do, especially when you're younger and you can't really get it. But like every once in a while, you'll hit one that you're like, oh, okay,
yeah,
I see it, I get it, And those were those to me. I don't remember. I hadn't thought about Lahane in a while, but that was an amazing film.
This wasn't from that year, but it was, I think, from a year or two after. Was a big one for everybody was Amelie. Where it was like, okay, now I know how to watch foreign movies.
I'm going to tell you, though, like, at that point, I was like, well, sure, but Jeunet was already my favorite director. I said that. I said that and I meant it. I don't love City of Lost Children as much, but, like, Delicatessen blew my mind. It is super entertaining.
Josh, thank you so much for being on the show. It means a lot. We like to do a little thing for our guests, especially if they win, where they get to plug something. I know you're just getting started with this whole podcast game, so you want to give it a little shout out to your podcast? Our listeners maybe will give it a shot.
So you're telling me if I lost, you'd be like, you can't mention your show.
Oh yeah,
Shut the fuck
definitely.
up.
Yeah, if you lose, you don't get to pitch your stuff.
Yeah. All right, I'm here. I guess I'm from the iFanboy podcast. It is a comic book podcast that I do with my best friend Connor. We have been doing this podcast since 2005. I've gotten to meet everybody in comic books I ever wanted to meet, and I've avoided meeting some because I didn't want to meet them, but I had that privilege, I suppose. We talk about the new weekly comic books, sort of mainstream, regular comic books that come out every Wednesday. We pick the best one. We talk about those. I'm doing the script. We talk about the books that we liked and discuss and do some listener mail. And I mean, I love it. It is the best part of my week. It is still fun to do after all these times. I love the comic book art form. It is the most unsung sort of way of telling a story that works so well, and they keep giving you more. Wow, look at that! I'm getting sentimental because it's late.
He's wistful, ladies and gentlemen.
We have shows. We do it every week. It's the only thing I've ever done on time every week for my entire life. Literally my entire adult life. And if you like weekly comic books or you want to, then you should check that out. We do some other stuff on other media. We do a monthly show about other things that aren't comics. I do interviews sometimes. I believe I'm the best comic book interviewer in the podcast space. I said it. That's right.
I'll step in here. I listened to the beginning of Talksplode, and I continue to listen. And I will say that Josh is the getting better at interviewing person that I've ever heard. Like the first episodes were good. Now I will agree with him what he's saying right now. Like you have definitely grown so much. I feel like I'm insulting, but like no, you have.
No,
Like
I
now
was
you're at
being
the
I was
tippy
being
top.
smug, but I'm very proud of it.
And the other thing that I've said this to Josh before when he guested in my college class, but if you quit reading comic books, listen to iFanboy. Like it will still keep you up to date, even if you don't have the time to read all 22 pages of those things, or 20 pages. I think they might be now.
Well, Josh, it was an honor to have you. Thank you
so
so much for being on the show. And congratulations on winning by what is frankly a kind of humiliating.
Destruction, yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad one. Listeners, this season still has Ghost in the Shell, The Birdcage, and Independence Day before we finally pick 1996 Movie of the Year. So stick around for all those. But in the meantime, hey, do me a favor, will ya? Keep watching them movies.